Are we on? We're live?
Yeah. Make sure.
Hello?
Do a little test, make sure everyone can hear.
Hello, hello. We're hoping you can all hear us. We're live here at Dog to Dog.
Hi, Sherry.
Our question and answer. Hi, Sherry. Hi, all you dear people.
And the mic's working. You can see it.
Hey, we're waiting for people to
Jump on
here for just a second. Sorry, we were a little bit late getting. We're still figuring out our technical difficulties. So we sent out an email talking about some of the things that we had come in last time. You can send in chat. You can use text to send that in. Use the chat feature.
This is annoying.
And we'll get to everything we can. We had a bunch of good questions last time. We're going to have to kind of pick them as we go. We'll be on weekly. So we'll address them kind of as we go. I'm Scott. For those of you who have this is the first time for you. I'm a co-owner with my pal and partner here, Darcy. We are both master trainers with a combined experience of about, well, it's north of 50 years. It's because I'm old, okay? So let's dive in. As people, there's now what's going to happen is some of these questions, I mean, they're excellent questions. They're point specific often, so that your camera's on back there.
Is it?
Yeah. You're looking at my jacket, possibly.
Oh, there's Mark.
Oh, there's Mark.
Hello.
And here's other people. Hi. Is that you, Beth? Thumbs up, Bethy. Hi, honey. How are you? It's good to see you. I know Beth. She knows I'm old because I knew her when she was little. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of break some of this down here at Dog to Dog. This is one of our things. Okay. This is we always go to the why. We always break it down, and then we'll expand on some of these questions, okay? So this is Beth's question. We're going to do yours first time, okay? I have a really well-behaved German Shepherd Pit Mix, only a year old. Recently, a stray has wedged her way into our home. Isn't that the truth? That is excellent. I like that. Wedged her way into the home. A Staffordshire Bull Terrier. We don't plan on keeping her long term, but while we are caring for her, my shepherd's being more aggressive, mainly just towards her. Can I calm him or teach him to calm down and not be so dominant, possessive? Okay. We're having a ton of this. There is we just heard from students that a whole bunch of people, a lot of people go out and buy puzzles. Some people go out and get a puppy. And some of them make a very interesting choice, which can be extremely challenging, which is what? Number one, you probably take your kids with you, or what you go and you see the puppies, and they're all cute. Guys, puppies are all cute. Strays they look at you with the eyes, right? I want to live with you, whatever. We go, oh, we bring the puppy in, right? A lot of you wonderful people out there have responded to the shelters. There's a ton of fostering going on, and I just think that's awesome. I mean, just well done. We love you so much for doing that. But we have a problem, right? A lot of people, number one thing that we'll hear with multiple dog families, number one, by far, is we didn't want our dog to be lonely. All right. And they say, is that, no, guys, no, that is not a reason ever to add a dog to your pack. Dogs don't do that. You are the pack. Here's the story we tell, okay? I'll use Japanese because I've spent time in Japan and I know that they don't do English very well. Okay, so you bring a Japanese exchange student into your home. They do no English, okay, and you don't do any Japanese, and so you do your best. You make hand signals, we're eating, that kind of thing. You do the best you can, and for a couple of 3 months, your things start to get to where you can more or less understand what each other are doing. Now, imagine you lose your minds and you bring another Japanese exchange student in. Okay, you have room, no big deal. First one was awesome, right? There was no problem. And they will be able to keep each other company. And that is exactly what happens. They are some of the politest people living on the planet, but finally, someone who speaks my language. And for all intents and purposes, in many ways, you will become secondary. All right? That is exactly what happens when you bring another dog in. And depending on what your pack structure was, will depend on whether the dog is already packed up with you. What is this? I'm not doing this. But they communicate perfectly because they're canine. And so they do their thing, and all of a sudden people say, I don't know what happened. I mean, I thought I'd bring this dog in and the dog would learn manners from that. That's not what happens. They will become what we call pack within a pack, which means you got the dogs over here, the humans over here, and neither the twain start to meet at all, okay? So having said that, that's the why. Dogs communicate very well, but you also, there's an interesting word Beth's used here, possessive. Guys, your drugs, okay? We talked about this last time. You're going to hear us talk about that. The 3 heroines, okay? 3 heroines. Your eyes, your voice, and your touch. They're drugs. Your dog is addicted to you. They really, a lot of them, depending on temperament, all dogs are different. And we'll talk about that in just a second because we're going to touch again on the gender thing with the dog. We are not telling you not to have another dog, but we would be hypocrites, you see. We would have multiple dogs. So that when you're looking at this, just understand that you create a situation where, as in Beth's case, her dog says, oh, no. They will draw a very severe line. And I mean, dogs aren't real kind that way with one another. They live law, it's order, and they're going to make sure that other dog knows you are a stranger here. You're Omega. There is no, and depending on your dog's temperament, your drive structure and stuff will depend on how severe that can be. Okay. We deal with this, guys. Maybe more multiples than singles.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe, which is saying something. That's a big change in the last 20 years or so. But that's people dealing with this. We deal with it all the time. We use you can use restrictive measures, but here's the deal, okay? We will have the online training course available for you very quickly. We had a whole bunch of questions about that. Yes, we deal with all this, but for now, you cannot force them to like each other. Okay, so that's the first thing we want to talk about right now. Dogs don't all like each other. I mean, when I first started 36 years ago, I would have told you a dog's a dog. You know, it does. Guys, that's not true. Dogs can be screaming bigots, you know, with the weirdest of things. They don't like women. They don't like men. They don't like border collies. They don't like, I mean, whatever it is, you can have a major problem. And trying to say, well, maybe I'll just feed them together. So you don't do that, okay? Separate the dogs. Keep them restricted, okay? So just step on the leash. I mean, we do something called the step down some things, but you know, in the course we would lead you through that. But for now, you just keep them close to you. Don't let the dogs interact. Split them off. If you have one in a crate, perhaps the other. Immerse them together for now. Let them get used to space and odor. So in Beth's case, for instance, and many of you others, you've got this other animal in here and they smell. So that they start to fill the space. Your dog won't like it. Now, what's one of the first things that'll go south? Potty training. I can't believe it. My dog is peeing in the house. He hasn't peed in the house for 3 years. We brought this other dog in. Yeah, I got to use my ink to sign for, you know, I got to make sure this dog knows this is my turf. Now, does time help? Yes. Yes. Time helps, but depending on the dog will depend on how long the two get together. Now, let's talk about gender, okay? Very best mix is, generally speaking, spayed female, neutered male, okay? The female is going to be the queen, mostly. That's, I mean, all things, you know, you have differences. You have males that can be real poopy, but generally speaking, you have the female who will pretty much be dominant because it's a matriarchal society. The male will kind of trot around with her. He's subordinate. There's no problem. 2 males neutered, or an intact and a neutered male. So you see, so you create a natural structure to where you don't have 2 dogs on the same step, so to speak. Guys, that cannot happen. You cannot force it with treats or food or bedding space or anything. I actually had a student, if you can believe it, who said, you know what, I'm going to crate them together. I'm going to force them, yeah, you can only imagine. And it of course, was a catastrophe. It was chaos. And I have had students whose dogs fight all the time. I was working in a kennel as a favor to a friend. We had these 2 dogs come in. They were both pit mixes. I wish I could remember their names. It's been years ago. But we came in one morning and there was blood on the ceiling and blood on the walls. And they were both sitting in opposite corners, like 2 fought out MMA guys, you know, and kind of looking sad. We had a slight incident last night, whatever. And we're going, oh my gosh. We call the owners. They go, they do that. Okay. Well, that's usually not the best way, especially if you're going to try and get involved. So keep your dog close to you. You can crate the other dog, let their odor be out. When you're going to bring the other dog out, put your dog in a crate or have them separate so that you're not. Now, don't do the whole yard inside thing with a sliding glass door. Okay, we talked about that. We briefly, human barrier is going to cause issues there. That's, they can see each other, and your dog for sure isn't going to be happy about that, especially if the other dog is on the inside with you. So a lot of people say, well, tough, he'll just have to get used to it. Guys, your dog will have their say. That's, I mean, he may back off for a bit, but you put them together where you're not right there, you'll often have a readjustment, an attitude adjustment, so to speak, and it can be ugly. And then humans jump in where angels fear to tread, and we get people bit and that kind. So you have to be patient. Feed them separately. Do not create feeding space that allows your dog to say, wait a minute, he can't be in the same room eating with me, and that will depend on the intensity of your dog. But as usual, okay, we'll always quote our credo. All right, obedience is law. So we teach you obedience exercises, things to do, commands, but all obedience is law. Law brings order. It's what your dogs are looking for. Order. You know, what is this place? Who administers place? Order brings confidence. And with confidence, of course, this is kind of separate, comes peace. There's, you know, with confidence, we say, oh, all right, the humans have got it. There's no problem. Confidence brings trust, and trust brings joy. That's how you build your obedience structure, okay? So bringing other dogs into your home, I've done it all the time. Some people have to. Foster people. I had a student that went on to become a trainer. She was fabulous. I think she had 7 or 8 or 9 dogs, you know, my Allison. And she, you know, she's fabulous. She's really good. Those of you who don't, whose hearts are involved, and you're bringing fosters and stuff in, you must keep them separate until they start to pack up, which they will do, provided you don't try and force it with treats. Okay, 1 for you and 1 for you. Your dominant dog won't like that. And even if you try and control that, sooner or later, the 2 dogs are going to be, and suddenly, boom, we've got a scrap going on. Because, you know, usually there's no harm, no foul. Dogs sound a lot worse than they are, but that sometimes is not the case. And in best case, if we have a Staffordshire Terrier or you have dogs that are born gladiators, you know, we can have some bloodshed. And so we want to keep that down. I hope that helped, Bathy. It's you know, a little bit. You can always text me, babe, and we can talk a little further. So that was our first question. Yes, bringing dogs in are awesome, but just be aware, people ask us, is 2 dogs twice as hard? No. 2 dogs can be 5 or 10 times as hard. And it tends to make people really, oh, what have we done? Guys, it's just training. You know, that's what we do. It's certainly surmountable. There is no dogs that can't be trained. You're not going to say something we haven't heard. I mean, together, we've heard just about anything you can't even imagine, some of the stuff we've seen. It's okay. It's all right. You just kind of, you know, a real bad knot sometimes. You're going to pick at it until, you know, you can untie the knot and rebuild pack. That's not a problem.
The one thing I think about all that when he talks about doing the knots and stuff is a lot of times people will call in for training or have questions and they say, oh, I only have this one specific issue. Well, there is no magic wand when it comes to dogs and dog psychology and the drives, instincts, and character traits. You have to look at why it's happening. So once we can see why it's happening, then we can kind of pull things apart and fix it. And there's always the 2 roads, which is one, you have to manage the situation, or actually we can modify the situation. So that depends on handlers, it depends on the dogs and what we're seeing. So if you think there's just one simple thing you can do to fix a problem, usually it's more complex than that. So we're here to help you with that. So we had a question last week that we didn't get to, was about dogs barking at a door, and that was from Krista. I wanted to address that one. So with training, of course, you have the door, and that is a barrier, and all this cool stimulus comes into the house. And dogs don't do barriers, you know, they do pee, you know, they sniff each other. So anyway, it's fun, it's exciting, and somebody's coming in the house or somebody's at the door and the dog lights up. So you have to back it up. I do training modules for things like that. So since you've done training with us, I would pick a spot where you want the dog to be. I would start to practice stay there. And as you just don't like cross your fingers and hope to die, and somebody comes in the door and you're going to try to manage the situation when you're living real life. So picking a spot, practice your stay there. Remember, any place, anytime, for any reason. And if the dog moves when you're practicing stay, put the dog back. Then there's other tools, you know, I think you guys got the electric fence thing. So, I mean, that's one thing that I think you guys did to try to mitigate to have him be away from there. If I remember correctly. The other part is having like the collar and the leash on the dog, even, you know, if you're living life a little bit, because if he starts to bark, you don't want to touch him. You don't want to talk to him a whole lot. Remember the 3 heroines. And so you're going to want to step on the leash and pull the dog back. I mean, and I have a note on my door that if I am doing dogs in training and I have a door issue, I'll say, you know, I put the note on the door and I just say, I'll be there as soon as I can. So if it's somebody coming and I don't have time to deal with it, I grab the leash, I put the dog in the crate, and then I answer the door. So we can talk more in depth on that, but those are a few things. It's like you actually have to set up and think ahead instead of just being reactive to what is happening. You have to plan. How do I want this? Where do I want the dog? And we can help you sort all those kinds of things. Anything else to say?
No, that was awesome. You want to do this other question?
Sure. Okay, so this is about Finn. Okay, so we had the earthquake a few weeks back, and we had a client's dog who was outside when the earthquake happened, and now, you know, ever since the dog goes outside, he's kind of jumpy, and so she's wanting to know how to kind of deal with that. Now, with Finn specifically, we have some softness in the dog, and there is some natural fear in Finn. And so remember that your dog always mirrors you. So it's like if you saw your dog's behavior and you're like, oh, the dog is, you know, fearful or timid or whatever word you're using, and then you're wanting to try to reassure the dog. I mean, the dog has no idea why you're like kind of going over the top of like, oh, it's all right. See, that is kind of counterintuitive. Like for me, it would be, I would do some things that I would do outside, but the first thing I would do is check where I'm at. Am I nervous for my dog? Because it's like if you're nervous for the dog has no idea. Remember, they discriminate by molecules. So when your odor changes, the dog, and you're like going from, let's say, red to green, the dog's looking at you like, that's really weird. Like, what's wrong, Mom? And so I always check myself first. What else do you have to say?
Well, you're what we're here. There's avoidance. Okay, dogs aren't stupid. So something bad happens. All right, we approach a parked bicycle, and the bicycle falls over on us. Dogs are very logical, you know. So therefore, parked bicycles are monsters, and are to be avoided. You know, we don't want that. So we do what we call build confidence. confidence is literally defined as the propensity to be brainwashed. So we're going to say if something's fine when the dog perceives that something isn't fine. Okay? Real or imagined, dogs have imaginations too. I mean, I've talked about this, the little red alien creature, which we call fire hydrants. Everybody thinks all dogs pee on fire hydrants. I've met many dogs that are terrified of them. It's a perception. I don't know what that little red thing is, is it some kind of alien creature? I don't know. So you have to expose the dog, but as Dar said, how you do that. If you do exposure and you're just, oh, I hope he's okay, you're not going to be able to lie to your dog. A half a decibel change in your voice, it's going to be a problem. So calm is best, immersion is best, carefully coming closer and closer to something that's tough, going out in the case of Ricky, with Finn, going out for just a little bit, don't push it. We say, well, we always go for a walk. Be willing to change your routine. Cut it down, just a little bit. So the dog says, oh, wow, that wasn't so bad, whatever. We come back in, we pet, pet, pet. Maybe a little bit later we go out and you immerse the dog into a situation that is hard. Now, the softer the dog, or more sensitive, I guess is the word. Soft is a technical term for us. But the more sensitive the dog, the more chance that it's going to take longer, and that your house of cards, so to speak, is a little more fragile. So if you become a liar, let's use a totally ridiculous example, okay? So we say, okay, we're doing little bits outside because the earthquake freaked my dog out. Actually, from what I heard, cats freaked out more than a lot of dogs. But a softer dog will also, I heard people say their dog whined for half an hour. They can hear and feel vibration way before we do. And the world is a scary place. I don't want to. So we're taking them out, and let's just say we've got it going, everything's fine, and we have another earthquake, an aftershock. You just became a liar. You said that we would be fine out here or whatever. Okay, that's an example, whatever. Or you let a bike fall off, or the dog falls off a fire escape, when you've told them the fire escape's fine, whatever. That is bad. That's where your confidence, your house of cards blows off. And is it failure? No, you can reprogram a dog. You can come back in and say, okay, but it takes longer, it takes more patience, and you must maintain your sanity. You have to be calm with the dog. That is the biggest thing we see with our handlers here. Okay, now those are two. Okay, there's one on the screen talking about Bernedoodle. We love Bernedoodles. And walking the dog. That is the dream, right? That we want to walk our dog. But so often we create with walking what's called threshold behavior. There is a different expectation from the dog in the house as to the minute they go out and I'm going to take my human for a walk, which is what often happens. And so pulling the leash underneath the front leg, they said slows it down. That is what we call compulsion. Okay, it's uncomfortable for the dog to try and pull like that. There are many ways that you can do a loin hitch. There's a whole bunch of old-timey things like that. They generally do not lend themselves, number one, to order, which is no pressure on the leash, walking shoulder to knee, which is how we train for dog movement, or what people call heating. Okay, you move, the dog moves. You stop, the dog sits. You can hang the leash over your finger. That is what obedience would be with movement. There's a whole lot of people that want to use compulsion. You see it all over social media. With this harness, with this, guys, look, let's talk about why again. Dogs were used as working animals, beasts of burden for centuries. Rich people had horses. Okay, many people had dogs here on this continent with your Native Americans, whatever, the travois, the dog carts in Europe, and so it goes on and on and on. It's a fascinating, wonderful story. Dogs were bred that could pull or that could carry load, and so most dogs, if you put pressure here on the chest, they're gonna pull. And if you see something interesting, oh, look, Fifi's in heat, and you're pulling when you've got it looped under the thing, eventually you're going to have a rash there for sure. You may have some abrasion. It depends on how tough the dog is. Does it increase control? Sure. Yeah, it does. But it's not fundamentally what here at Dog to Dog we call applied obedience, okay, which is order. That there's trust and confidence. When the human moves, I'm going to move. I know that he'll let me go. That I'll be able to sniff and we have these places that the dog will step outside of the law and be able to do their thing, and then we'll call them back into the law, so that your dream can truly take place joyfully. That you can take your dog for a walk anywhere. We don't have to say, okay, it's like 10:30 at night. I probably can go out because no one else will be out, because if anyone else is out, my life is havoc. And other dogs are behind fences and whatever. Those are all training scenarios. Guys, it's not really horrible or hard or anything. It's just the mechanics of moving with the dog. Compulsion is never the best answer. It can certainly be used. Crating your dog, for instance, is a compulsive measure. The dog is in the crate, therefore you can do whatever it is you need to do. But in the end, is that, people say, well, I didn't buy this dog to have him in the crate 24/7, whatever. Of course you didn't. And that's what training is about. That's what we're about here. Our phone number, we had several of you call in. For right now, yes, we're working on our online group training. We have had great success with that, as I mentioned before last time, as with out-of-state students and that kind of thing. We will have it. So we will address these things right here at a substantial discount. We know people are hurting right now. Let's all hope that this thing ends fairly quickly. But this is a great time for a lot of you folks. We will also, I'm looking at my IT technical dude, man, Mr. Mark Thackeray, greatest guy ever. And what we would like to do, if you have interest, now some of this has to do with interest. Okay, our phone number is 801-410-8126. Okay, 801-410-8126. Now, those of you who may have got a puppy, okay, that are starting with a puppy, well, we're hearing that a whole bunch of people have done this. The kids are home. We understand. You have to please know that we understand what it's like to be so locked down. It's really tough. And you wonder what the heck you've done. What have we done? We bring this puppy in. Guys, it's doable. I promise it can be done. So if you have interest, would you please email or text us or whatever, call and tell us, and we will do an online puppy course. Okay, and we'll get the particulars of that to you, and we'll also have the group training online. For now, we are able to, because we can limit the numbers and we can control the environment, we can have training here at Dog to Dog if you're local. And we are taking, I've had people say, one of our students works with a vet. In fact, we have a couple, 3 that are vet employees. We don't know what to do. Yes, we are taking students. So please call. We will figure it out. Trust us, please. We'll figure it out. We've done this for a long time. We're very successful at what we do.
When you talk about puppies and bringing a young dog into your house, I mean, we go over potty training, we go over some behavioral stuff. We give you tools in how to bond with your dog that are counterintuitive to what people think, and we start to lay some structure so the dog can trust you. Oh, you've got this place. And then, I mean, potty training is a huge thing. So there's things that we address that start to have you have a joyful experience with your dog. And it's amazing. And I think if I hadn't had the knowledge I had when I got my dog, which she's almost 2 now, but that first year was intense because many things did not go just straight across the board. I'm thinking, oh, I know potty training.
I'm a professional.
Yes, this is not going to be a problem. Well, there were some bladder issues and some other things that occurred that made potty training very difficult. And she was actually 8 or 9 months old before we got certain things figured out. But I was able to manage the situation. And now she's like great, but it's just one of those things. It's like if I hadn't known what I needed to do, I think if somebody else had her, she would have ended up in a shelter because there's like no way they would have dealt with that. So anyway, we're there for you to support you and to bring you together so that you can have perfect partnership with your dog.
Look, we promise. I know, this. We're different. There aren't a lot out there that have done it for anywhere near this amount of time. We love what we do. In our confidence and social immersion that we do on Saturday mornings when everybody is at lockdown. We have had, I've had a number of trainers that I've known for years to say, you're crazy. How are you bringing dogs in that don't know each other or that don't get along? Because we're dog trainers. We know what we're doing. We bring together 20, 30, 40 people and their dogs. We not only are together, but we exercise together. We do exercises that are fun. We go up and over agility equipment. It's on a punch pass, so you come when you want. That kind of, the snowbirds, I really don't want to go when there's 4 feet of snow on the ground. There others are fine with it, but it doesn't matter. You can come and be with us. You can see. We promise that your dog can be trained. I've done this for 36 years this last March. I can think of a double handful in 36 years, and that includes the working dogs. Okay, the bomb, the narc, the cadaver, that kind of thing. Double handful where there was really bad news. Your dog is not fixable. For all intents and purposes, it is a psychotic serial killer. And whether it's killing other dogs or killing other things, children, I mean, dogs like that you can tell your hair stands up when you see them, they're not fixable. That's like 10 guys out of thousands. Your dog is trainable. Believe it. We believe in you. We know you can. We love you. We love your dogs. And that is our live Q&A for today. We record it. It's available a little bit later. And watch for the online stuff. We will get that to you just as quickly as we can. Well, see, here's the problem with live. I don't dare say stuff until I've talked to the boss. So we won't. All right. We wish you the very best. And stay safe out there. We'll talk to you next time.
Yep, we'll be on next Wednesday, and we'll post the time because I'm not sure if we'll do it at 10 or we'll bump it a little bit later. But anyway, have a great week. If you have questions, reach out and we're here.